So $500 million spent, the most expensive show ever made. That's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And we are back to give our thoughts on the full on first season of The Rings of Power. Lachlan, welcome.
Hello.
Hello there. Before we get into our spoiler thoughts, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a Lord of the Rings fan would you say you are?
Fan? I wouldn't say I'm a
Yeah,
10. I probably wouldn't say that I'm probably say I'm close to like a 6 or 7. Unfortunately, I haven't
right.
recently rewatched the Lord of the Rings series and the Hobbit series, which I probably should have done prior to Rings of Power. But I followed through with the show pretty easily. I pretty much got all the names and references and
Yeah.
everything like that. So I would say I'm quite knowledgeable. Let's just say that.
For me, I gotta take that away. I've only seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy once, maybe like 7, 8 years ago. So I'm not the biggest fan. I'm also not like that big on fantasy. So for me, it's a bit harder to get into that stuff. I think that's like should be set up front before we review this because then to maybe brace for impact on where I skew maybe a bit more negatively than other people who really enjoy Lord of the Rings and this fantasy saga. But for me, I would probably be like a 4 or a 5, somewhere in the middle. Don't really care for it too much. I think the filmmaking is amazing. Maybe something that is really outstanding, how we introed the show, the budget of this has been incredibly high. Most
Ridiculous.
expensive show ever made. Had a budget of, I think, 462 million for all of the episode. That's 57 million per episodes. There were 20 different VFX studios working on it, including the biggest ones like Veda or ILM. A lot of people working on this. And I think it shows. But Lachlan, do you think like that investment, those I think like half a billion to get the rights, and now about half a billion for the production of season one? Do you think that's worth the investment for Amazon so far after seeing season one?
Do I think that the show is worth the money? No.
Right.
Unfortunately not.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is just a lack of, I guess, emotional weight in the show right now. There is just a
Yeah.
lack of that, and that is probably the most unfortunate thing so far. It's hard to say worth it in the context of how much money was spent on it, because there are definitely better shows out there that were like significantly cheaper to make. I guess right now the comparison will be House of the Dragon, which I think has
Mm-hmm.
definitely improved with the later half of the season and is slowly
Yeah.
approaching to be better than Lord of the Rings. I do think that Lord of the Rings is a much prettier and well produced show in the sense that it
Yeah.
is very good looking. It is very pleasing to watch. I don't think there's a single frame that I could nitpick on. I think there's a lot of care that has been taken into making this series,
Mm-hmm.
except from the writing department, because I think there is such a fundamental flaw in the writing of this show, of where the stories were going, where they led to, and
Mm-hmm.
then in the twists, especially in the last episode. Because
Yeah.
if there's anything that I disliked about this series, it was the season finale. The season finale is single handedly the worst episode of the show, and it should not be the worst episode of the show so far. It should not be. It should be the pilot, or it should be like the mid-season finale, that, or like a episode 4 or a 7. It shouldn't be the
Mm-hmm.
final episode that I hated the most.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd also say the money is a lot of money spent on the series. I think how detailed it gets with like the different species, the different parts of the land. I think it makes sense that it costs so much money to produce, and it looks really clean. I didn't like how clean that looks, but for this fantasy tale, I think it kind of nails that. It's just really not for me. So I think it was worth it. Like monetary from a monetary standpoint, it doesn't really make sense. That's obvious, but that doesn't really it isn't really a concern if you want to create this long lasting thing, which I agree is undercut by the writing. So let's get into spoilers and maybe start with the beginning storylines of this first season. and what they wanted to tell in this story. I think there's a couple different storylines. I think it's the development of the Southlands, and how that gets to become Mordor. That's part of it, and then the fate of the stranger. I think all of those storylines are pretty much set up in the first episode, or at least no, not in the first episode, because the first episode is really focused on Galadriel mainly, if I
Yep.
remember correctly. And then we get her sidelined for a while, right in the episode like 2 to 4 or 5 or something like that. And then we get a bit more with the Harfoots and the Strangers, a bunch of stuff all concerning that sword MacGuffin thing, which a lot of the stuff also went over over my head. I don't know about you, if you got those references and how important these artifacts were popping up, but I didn't really get a lot of the stuff, so I was a bit confused at times. But how did you experience like those the like jumping between different storylines as well?
The main plot storylines that we've got are going to be obviously Galadriel. She's probably the she's meant to be the most important main character out of all of
Yeah.
them, but it ends up moving from that away because you start with her and you think, okay, cool, she's gonna kind of be like the, I guess, the Jon Snow, because I'm gonna use Game of
Yeah.
Thrones as a it's the easiest way to explain a story that's trying to be as grand scale as this.
Yeah.
She is meant to be the Jon Snow, basically the main
Mhm.
character of the series. She ends
Yeah.
up being sidelined, as you said, exactly after like the first episode, and it really leans hard into both the Harfoots and the Wanderer,
Mhm.
alongside uh, Durin and Elrond and their relationship.
Yeah.
Which for me, the storyline I had the most fun with would probably be Elrond and Durin, because I feel like their relationship was very interesting. Overall, like the small things where, there's that challenge at the start and he's immediately banned from ever visiting one of the dwarven mines. And
Yeah.
at, one of the last episodes, he's like, I was winded just a little bit. It's just that little part of their relationship that's super interesting that you see develop over each episode. And,
Mhm.
and the great risks that they take within their own race, with their own kings and their own monarchies, the risks they take to help each other. They're really good
Yeah.
friends, and for me, that was probably one of my favorite parts of this season. Was that
Mhm.
um, I never really connected with Galadriel's story and reason. I didn't really care about her brother dying. Like you kind of can't, in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's not that impactful in any kind of way to be connected to her reason to keep going after this evil. And obviously the last one being the Wanderer, which is probably the biggest mystery of this entire series, is who is this person? Who is this
Yeah.
stranger with the Harfoots, and obviously the Harfoots being the closest to a hobbit in a way. So it's not super jarring to, I guess, regular, or I guess the not regular viewers, but the casual Lord of the Ring watchers, the ones who know what Lord of the Rings are, but they go, where are the small people? There's a dwarf, but where are the ones with the big feet? You know what I mean?
Well, the ones with the
The
big
big
hairy
hobbits.
feet. Yeah, we want more of those.
So
And
for
yeah.
me, like those are the main storylines, and you got little small ones throughout, like that demise of the island, that prophesized and everything like that, and their
Yeah.
crazy mad king, and you've got the elf father being basically the father of all the orcs, and that storyline with the
Yeah.
archer elf, you know, and that kind of gets sidelined by the end of the series. It kind of gets really, really like the thing about midway through and then dies off. So there is a lot going on. And I feel like, going the
Agreed.
eight
Yeah.
episode route is interesting that they decided to do 8 episodes, because it feels like at an hour long, it's still not long enough to get all the information across to the audience, because the last episode is such a rush of like a lot goes on and a lot of twists and a lot of reveals are done, and it just seems like a lot for a final episode.
It does exactly that. What to continue on the comparisons to Game of Thrones of the later seasons, where in the first few seasons, if a character was traveling from one place of the land to another one, it took them a couple episodes to get there.
Yeah,
And here you also get the episode jump that, like, within the small time frame, from the Southlands to wherever the elves are, Galadriel also jumps there in the final episode. It's just
Mhm.
in between the second last to the last. I don't remember specifically, but distance is covered, and time is passing really fast. And I think they just want to get to a place which is I saw a quote afterwards that the series is trying to get a more nuanced approach to Sauron and his like fall, and how he that is not just like that black and white of the
Mhm.
evil, but more on his backstory. And they say in this first season they couldn't really do that yet, but I think they also didn't do anything yet. It was just like a twist at the
No.
end. um
It's
I mean that's I think that's the biggest thing that comes out of this first season. I think everything kind of led up to that, so I don't know how much it makes sense to talk about the individual steps in between. But Yes, the stranger, or the wanderer, or whatever he's called, is not Sauron. But apparently, I guess it could be different people, or like the people who are like those witches creatures that were after him. Try to make him Sauron. Am I, or did they just have the wrong person? I don't know. I didn't really get that. What
well,
did you
no,
think?
it's a great point because the those three, I guess, witches or whatever they were, uh, are useless. They were following the wrong
Yeah,
person, and it feels
yeah,
like the reveal of the stranger was exciting. It feels
hmm,
very exciting because that's, as I said, it's the biggest mystery of who they are, and you get it that they're a wizard. I'm assuming it's going to be Gandalf. I guess from
probably.
my knowledge of Lord of the Rings, I feel like that would make the most sense.
Yeah,
Obviously they
he moves
set him up as
from
being Sauron, but
yeah.
obviously Sauron is Halbrand, which is an interesting twist. When I say interesting, I mean completely left hook out of nowhere, and it feel like he got like punched by Mike Tyson, as it was just so out of nowhere. Um,
Yeah.
so the mystery of, like, we knew the Wanderer was a wizard. You kind of set that up
Mhm.
from the, like, he's doing magic from like day dot, and I get it. He
Yeah.
crashed in a ball of fire. Very interesting, very ominous, very evil. So you go, oh,
Ooh.
this guy's Sauron. And you think,
Yeah.
hey, I'm locking that one in. Hey, is it option A, Sauron? Option B, Gandalf? Option C, just a random dude? Option D, the a hobbit? So you kind of can work it out. You're like, okay, it's either going to be this person or it's either going to be this person. But from setting
Yeah.
it up, and you go, oh, okay, it's looking like it's Sauron. And it would have been very interesting that Sauron,
You're right.
especially as you
With
said,
Nori,
they
right?
didn't know he'll be
With the
like good or
hobbits.
bad. He's like being a good
Yeah.
guy to Nori, and then it's like these are the true self. It's they could have done something very interesting, but unfortunately, I think for me the reason the twist was kind of, it was there but it wasn't, was just the fact that these
Mhm.
people were trying to find him, and then they're like, it's not
Yeah.
Sauron, and it's like, well, how did you not realize? What is there like a? Do you have like a scale
Magic
that says good
tracker.
or evil? Like,
Yeah.
are you just tracking him? Like, how? Why do they
Mhm.
believe he is Sauron? And Halbrand has just been wandering literally everywhere. Like, he's literally been like everywhere on Middle Earth and
Yeah.
out of Middle Earth, essentially. And they don't know that he's there. Why is it they're tracking him, but they can't track him, even though he's maybe not using as much magic as what the Wanderer is? It just seems like the twist of who the Wanderer was the biggest mystery. They're like, okay, he's a wizard. Who? What wizard is he? You can have to figure that out next season. But they really
One
just
of
all of
them.
a sudden go, here's Halbrand. Who is he? He's the Lost King. They kind of conclude that. They're like, here's the Lost King. That's great. And in the last
Mhm.
episode, Galadriel's like, I don't know, Chief. I don't know if he's the Lost King. Let me go and do some ancestry.com shit and find that out. Why did no one? Why didn't? Ha, surely someone would have gone. Hang on a second.
I mean, especially the elves, who should be known for having been around this long,
Mm,
that they would easily be able to get that sort of information pretty fast. I think also how he gets into the story on the raft is a bit random on how she then completely takes him along to everything. To me, it was like
Mm,
really weird why this person shows up in the story and is this important. What turns out he was really important, maybe the most important person in the story. And another big thing that also happens a bit rushed in the last two or last episode is the creation of free rings. Um,
mm.
I don't know what sort of rings they are. Are those already the titular rings of power, or weren't there like nine in the original? I don't remember. Is that like that's not the
Well,
same thing,
obviously,
right?
like they were crafted, but it was I'm pretty sure it was 3 rings were given to the elves, and that's what those ones were. They were given to the elf lords. And
Right.
I think there must be other rings that are eventually going to be crafted because of this material. Now, obviously, you
Yeah.
know, there's a big old fire creature living underneath the the caves. Um,
Mhm.
so surely they will, bring that. You can't just show the big fire creature and just that be one shot and that's it. So obviously they're going to go and mine some
Mhm.
more of this mithril and create more rings. Because they're
Yeah.
probably going to be like, oh, why do they have these powers all of a sudden?
Got another
Yes.
question. The rings were created, and Halbrand,
Mm-hmm.
aka Sauron, aka badass motherfucker, the Lost King, helped them get there with like really terrible dialogue towards that. Just felt like the elf is an idiot for like the things he
Mm-hmm.
suggested that he didn't think about before. But he helps them get there, but he doesn't like steal anything. If I remember correctly, he just dips because that it's the time where it's unveiled that he's Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get what he's doing. What is he doing in this?
Well, okay, so
What's his
I'm pretty
game?
sure the way it worked was Sauron forged the rings, so he had some kind of uh, process of doing something to them. He
Right.
obviously helped make these three, and that's season one. So we have the first three rings made for the Elven lords, okay, and they're going to be handed out,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm. Right.
Is this next season, season two, going to be Sauron's like creation of the ones for the dwarf or the ones for the men? Could that be
Hmm.
season two? So obviously the elven
Yeah.
race is going to die, and their downfall is going to happen. We know this, right? There's not that many elves left in Middle Earth when we get to like the cities are different, and there's not that many dwarves either. So like there's going to be this demise, but like, is season two going to be the next set of rings being forged? They're not going to be
Hmm.
forged at one point in time, and then it's going to be the one for the how many is it, like 10 for men or something like that? Hang on, let me Google this. Who do we believe the most? Okay, it looks like there's 20 rings. Jesus.
Jesus, that's a lot of rings, a lot of seasons
Okay,
to
obviously
make
there's the
rings.
one ring to rule them all, which is Sauron's. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
eventually get to that. There's the elves' three rings of power. So obviously we saw that being made. Well done. Here we are.
Yeah.
Congrats. There was 9 rings for men.
Right. So
Uh,
seven,
so obviously there's that as well.
seven others.
Uh,
Right.
and 7 rings of power to the dwarves. There's 7 rings for dwarves,
Oh, okay.
9 for men, and then there's the 3 for elves, which is interesting that the elves got 3. And and of course, it corrupted the users.
Right.
So
So
probably
maybe we
next
get to
season, now that
see
they've got
some.
the rings, they're going to be
Yeah.
corrupted by the use of
Interesting story potential there, which maybe to get to the end of our review and discussion. First of all, are you looking forward to season two of the show, and what do you think is going to happen versus maybe what you'd like to see happen?
Am I looking forward to it? Unfortunately, I don't think I am. The series does peak
Mm,
at episode. It peaks at 6. It peaks at
right,
6. 6
with the
is
big fights and
the
stuff.
best. And
Yeah.
I was like, "Holy shit, this is going to be this is it. This is the show that I've been waiting to see." It's taken 5 episodes. Yes, it's been a bit slow. It started off at a decent pace and kind of dipped down, and now we're at a part where it's like, do I want to see a season 2? Yes, because Game of Thrones season 1, while it's not perfect, it's still okay. It got better, and all
Yeah.
you have to do is just write the whole season on a whiteboard. So, like, even a chalkboard. Actually,
Hmm.
just get a
Well,
big piece of paper. this is directed at the Amazon studio writers, okay? At the writers for the show.
Well, I
Get a
would say
big piece of
Amazon
paper
writers just spend more money. Spend more. Don't think
and
about the
and
stories.
and
Just spend
and
more
write
money.
every episode and write exactly what's going to happen on every episode. And then
Yeah.
if your final episode has more things happening in it than any other episode, you realize you're fucked up because you should spread that shit across out the entire season. So
Mhm.
if season 2, okay, so my prediction is obviously, okay, so Wanderer is Gandalf. He is going to
Yeah.
learn the good. He's going to make his way and learn the magic and everything. Sauron's obviously off on his way
Mhm.
to do evil shit and probably forge more rings for either dwarfs or men. One of the two. That's what I think is going to happen in the next season. We're going to see the
Mhm.
downfall of the elves. We're going to see the corruption of the elves. They're going to go for a downfall. That's season 2. But more importantly, we're going to have a nice big orc fight somewhere in mid-season, to build up the anticipation. We're going to have some more downfall of that
Yeah.
island nation. But we're going to see more magic. We're going to see this emotional connection between Elrond and Durin because they're the only
Mm.
two characters I fucking care about at this point, and I want to see them married. I want to see them fight to
Yeah.
the very end. I want to see them
No.
in battle and killing like someone else to protect them, and then they die, and then it's like Romeo
Right.
Juliet, and like he died. I want to see them in a big battle together, fighting for each other, or
Yeah.
Durin kills his father. He becomes king of the
Mhm.
dwarfs because of the use of the ring. He puts the ring on, he becomes more corrupted. I don't know how Lord of the Rings works.
Mm.
And then Elrond goes on like a big massacre. I don't know. I don't know what season 2. This is just probably what
You
the,
just
the
want
writers
a
do.
lot
They
of
just say
death.
something and they go, I just want a lot of deaths. I want a death. Give me
Yeah.
a death.
A lot of
That's
death.
not
There was no
that
real
guy's
death
kid.
in. Yeah. No one. Well, yeah. That I forgot about. I couldn't see. After he died and he was sad about his kid dying. I couldn't remember what the guy who he was, what he did.
Yeah.
It was just like someone, I guess, had to die in this whole thing because apparently, yeah, no one died. The archer elf didn't die. Really, no one passed away.
That's a plot line I forgot that I should even talk about.
Well, because it's not really that relevant, other than that's why I wrote down for that one sword, because it essentially is about the kid touching the sword and then the father of all, like the corrupted elf that is the father of all the orcs, right? That's the
Mm,
thing. Him
yep.
taking off. Where it's like kind of leading you towards, okay, it's a who done it of who is Sauron for a lot of it. Uh which is just a weird choice for the series if you want to flesh out Sauron as this person
I'd
who
like to
has
see.
aspirations for a united Middle Earth, or like expanded even more than Middle Earth, but ruling under him. But essentially, he is like not just rule evil. That's just his, like that makes a good villain, right? Where he doesn't really
Huh.
see his own evilness, and it's not about that, but he sees some grander picture. And I think that's what they're trying to go for, but
Well,
I don't
I
know if
would
it's
like
gonna
to see
work.
what his goal is. I'd like to
Yeah,
know. That's the thing, because they kind of just go, "I'm Sauron, I'm the big bad, but I haven't been bad." He kind of just
yeah,
been
wink
sitting
at
around for the
camera.
ride. So my question
Yeah.
is, if you're going to make him the big bad, give him a motive. Obviously, hang on, my camera just died.
Right. Oh, yeah, how did you froze for me?
If you're going to set up a big bad, which obviously the entire season they were trying to pitch that the stranger, the wanderer, was Sauron, and he couldn't have a motive because he didn't know who he was. Perfect excuse to
Mhm.
not have a motive, right? But then you
Yeah.
reveal that this dude that you've been following around for a while has been a big bad. Why has he been going around? There's so many more questions from this
Mhm.
reveal than any answers, and that's the worst
Right.
kind of twist when you have to wait another 6 years for season 2, and you go, well, you're going to have to answer all of these questions now of why was he following around? What's the point of him going to all of these places? Obviously, to forge one of these rings, but for people who are casual viewers, what's the point of these rings? Like, I get it, it's Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, but what are the rings? What do they do? What's their purpose? I know they've got this magical essence to them, but to
Mhm.
people who are watching
Mm.
this, who are casual viewers like Ewan, it's like,
I am.
what is his motive? What is his motive? At least we got Gandalf.
I think we got Gandalf, right? It's
No, it's
probably got to
definitely
be.
Gandalf. It's a, you know how he said like sniffing your nose. That's a quote from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right. Well, that I didn't pick up on that, but I mean, the show, like you said, casual viewers. I think it's been doing great for Prime. Because I think the show has had like 25 million global viewers for the first episode. I don't know the numbers. If I find them on a graph, I'll put them in here on the video side. But it's been the top streamed show, like I think over House of the Dragon mainly. It's been doing a bit better than
Mm.
like view wise and watch time wise.
But I
So
feel
I
like
think it's also
as Lord of the Rings has
easier show
gone
to
on,
watch.
Lord of the Rings,
Hmm.
like the reception has been pretty flat. In it's like it's
Yeah,
never been like, oh, this is great, this is bad, this is great, this is bad. It kind of went, oh, it's been okay, then it gets good, and then it's like, fuck, this season finale fucking is just back to mediocre. Like it peaked at episode 6 of how good of an
yeah.
episode that was. House of Dragon kind of very similar, where it was like, oh, this is okay, this is good, and then it's just gotten better and better and better. It's
Right.
it's kind of improved as the season goes on, and it's
Mhm.
basically just come down to what's his name, Paddy Constantine's performance. He's the guy who plays King Viserys. Like he's doing a
Oh, yeah, King
fantastic
Viser
job.
yeah. Oh my god, yeah, 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 obviously, not gonna hostile takeover. We'll do a season 1 review for House of the Dragon when it wraps as well. But I think that is a good way of closing off this review. Something that I said at the start, I'm like, maybe a 5 on the Lord of the Rings type of fantasy, where like there's good characters and there's bad characters, and maybe in season 2 they'll try and experiment with somewhat flawed characters that are somewhere in between that turn into
Hmm.
a really bad guy down the line. But it's like very much like cut lines of how this is. And in House of the Dragon, everyone's kind of bad, and sometimes they're also good. And then there's also really bad people, scary bad people, and they're like all somewhere, and they also go back and forth. And like you said in the latest episode, like the humanity of all of them is also something that's in there. And I didn't ever feel that with this show.
Mm.
So it's not really my thing at all. But I've been loving House of the Dragon since episode 1. Haven't really been let down, and I think it's also just gotten better. But for me, it's been really high. So I think it is definitely like a thing of preference as well. Although arguably, what we've done over the last like half an hour is also say that the story aspect, especially of the twist for Rings of Power, just wasn't well developed and written. Whereas like other shows like House of the Dragon really has the writing on point, and the performances.
Mm.
I wouldn't bring in the performances because like they completely fit whatever they are doing in this other show as well. Uh, but Lachlan, I gave the Rings of Power a 6 out of 10 for this first season. Where did you arrive at as a rating for this season 1?
I'm giving it a. I know it's a TV show, and Letterboxd doesn't do TV ratings,
It
which
doesn't.
just
A
needs to have
shame.
something, right? Just needs something because I feel like I'm not watching a lot of stuff. It's because I'm watching a lot of TV right now, and I feel like I'm not logging enough on Letterboxd. But
Yeah.
I'm going to give season 1 of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, which has too many rings in the title, a 2.5. Not impressed. I mean, not impressed. I'm not blown away. I should have been blown
Yeah.
away. This is Lord of the Rings. It has a standard at this point that it should be
Yeah.
some of the best viewing experiences that you can have. And
Mm.
all they need to do is just bring back Peter Jackson. Give him 6 years to make the next season, and you shall have a Emmy award winning show. And you might get visual effects if they do visual. Do they do visual effects at the Emmys?
I don't know. There's a shit ton of categories. There's
Well, they're
like
not
over
winning
a
best
hundred.
writing. They're not winning. They're
Well,
not
yeah.
winning best writing. Maybe best
Mm.
adapted screenplay or something. Show,
Yeah.
right? What do you
I don't
get
know
at
if
the
they
Emmys? What
got
are
it.
they?
I don't know. The Emmys are
What?
confusing, man. There's so many different things there, and I think they already happened this year. Uh, but yeah, the next year, I guess. Which is also yeah. Anyways, we're trading off. This is becoming more of a podcast than a review
Maybe
for
it's
Lord of the Rings.
outstanding comedy series because it was so fucking hilarious to watch them fail. Sorry, that was really rough. I
Uh,
didn't hate it that
that was
much, but
wow.
that's
Yeah, well, it's pretty mid, I guess, overall. But that's it for Rings of Power season one. We'll be back with reviews for other shows, namely House of the Dragon, in a couple of weeks. Until then, we got a weekly podcast that comes out every Tuesday, the Quiet on Set podcast. So go give that a listen or watch and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss that. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.